And so just to recap and to finish off week 5 then, we started with some of the forerunners in Italian art of the Arte Povera movement. We looked at the works of Piero Manzoni, and we saw him as a kind of trickster figure who had inherited the Duchampian legacy. We looked at Lucio Fontana and his founding of Italian spatialism with his slashes in the canvas and various marks that he was obsessed with making on canvases and in various objects. And we looked at the work of Alberto Burri, who is one of the Arte Povera forerunners. He uses a lot of the same substances, the burlap and the iron and the metal and the burning and the use of fire and so forth. So we saw all of that. We glanced, in the next video, we glanced at Arte Povera, at some of the artists such as Pino Pascali and Giuseppe Pannoni, and we looked at the elemental emphasis that we find in Arte Povera, on the emphasis on wood and stone and air and fire. It's a very elemental art that's rooted in the concrete world. And then we looked at Yannis Kounelis, who is a Greek artist displaced to Rome, but part of the Arte Povera movement. The influence upon him of Alberto Burri was very strong. And we saw that Kounelis' cosmos was essentially tantamount to a reconstruction of Brauddel's world of memory in the Mediterranean, the realm of a very place-specific artist, a realm of specific things, thinging and worlding, holding the world together with his various objects, his burlap bags full of lentils or coffee beans, or his various wooden windows barricaded with blocks of stone and piles of wood and bells from in peasant countryside that have been taken from villages, and all of that. It's all very place specific, all very concrete. And it is a world of memory. He is an artist who is trying to reconstruct the past and to bring the past in these various fragments to open up a world horizon on the inside of the museum that will capture this lost world of the Mediterranean with its slower metabolism of ships trading spices and traveling out, and the slow metabolism of the peasant village, the villager taking the nap in the middle of the afternoon, and the bell ringing in the bell tower in the background. All of that kind of world is essentially what Yannis Kounelis is reconstructing. And it's a human world done at human scale, a world that is not, as far as Kounelis is concerned, interested in the factory world that scales the human being down, intimidates him, and scales him down to essentially an ineffective individual like an insect or a mouse running a maze in one of Kafka's novels. That is essentially not a world that interests Kounelis. It is a Heideggerian world of things thinging, sending out world historical resonance across space and time. Then we moved on to Christian Boltanski, and we looked at Boltanski's concern in his work. If Kounelis is an artist of place and space, Boltanski is an artist of time, who is essentially concerned with reconstructing a relation to the cult of the dead and to the genealogy of the generations. And he's very concerned, very anxious that those who are no longer with us be remembered in some way, or those who have fallen into the status of pure anonymities some way be remembered. And so we've seen a concern in his art with restoring an axial relationship to the underworld. And in works like Children of Dijon, where we see images of anonymous children on the walls of cathedrals, or if we look at some of the other works, some of his archives, and we looked at the exhibition at the installation that he did at the Grand Palais, Persons, with its apocalyptic imagery. We saw how Boltanski was concerned essentially with eschatological imagery on the one hand, and with the anonymous individuality on the other. It is said that each one of us is surrounded by a halo of dead ancestors, and his art is concerned with capturing not us as individuals, but that halo of the invisible dead that surround us. And so that has been the concern of his art all along. And I think for a final assignment here at the end of week 5, one might, if one wanted, think about the works of Kounelis and Boltanski, and think about the various ways, pick a work by each of these two artists, and focus on one work by each artist and contrast the ways in which both artists have some kind of an orientation to the past, because I think that an orientation to the past is a shared concern, and that's absolutely indubitable as a shared concern between the two of them. So a good assignment might be to think about the differing ways in which these two contemporary artists deal with the past, and ways that they are similar and ways that they are different. Next, we'll move on to week 6.